The Kresh commander Zrask had conquered 14 worlds in his lifetime. He had led armies against species that were stronger, faster, and better armed than these humans. He had crushed resistance movements, burned cities, and broken the spirit of entire civilizations. Nothing surprised him anymore until 7 metal pods fell from the sky and 7 warriors emerged, wearing armor that gleamed in the smoke-filled air. Zrask watched from his command position on a hill overlooking the battlefield. His tactical officers were hissing in confusion, checking their scanners, trying to understand where these newcomers had come from. The scanners showed no ships in orbit. No warning, nothing. Just 7 humans appearing out of nowhere. What are those? Zrask demanded, pointing at the armored figures with his clawed hand. His second-in-command, a younger warrior named Drask, studied the scanner readings. Unknown, Commander. Their armor is heavily shielded. Our sensors cannot penetrate it, but they are broadcasting human military identification codes. 7 soldiers, Zrask said, almost laughing. They sent 7 soldiers to face 2,000 warriors? The humans are more foolish than I thought. But even as he said it, Zrask felt a small seed of doubt. Something about those 7 figures bothered him. They stood too calmly. They moved with too much confidence. And their weapons, even from this distance, looked advanced. One of the humans raised a rifle and fired. The shot was a streak of light that crossed the battlefield in a fraction of a second. It hit a Kresh warrior in the chest, and the warrior simply ceased to exist. The hypersonic round punched through scales, bone, and internal organs, leaving nothing but a crater where the warrior had been standing. The entire Kresh army froze for 1 heartbeat. Then they opened fire. Hundreds of plasma rifles discharged at once, turning the air green with superheated energy. The plasma bolts should have vaporized the human soldiers instantly. But the humans didn't fall. Their shields absorbed the impacts, glowing bright blue as they dispersed the energy. And while the Kresh were firing, the humans were moving. Jake Morrison had been in combat situations that most people couldn't imagine. He had fought pirates in asteroid fields. He had cleared hostile stations in zero gravity. He had survived situations where any sane person would have given up and died. But this was something else entirely. 2,000 enemies all firing at once. The plasma fire was so thick it looked like a green wall advancing toward him. His shields were already at 70% and dropping. He had maybe 10 seconds before they failed completely. Scatter formation, Jake shouted. Don't give them a single target. The team split apart instantly. Amy Chen went left, her heavy weapons already firing. Paul Bennett went right, finding cover behind a destroyed Kresh vehicle. Nina Ross charged forward, moving too fast for the Kresh to track, her combat blade already in her hand. Jake activated his suit's mobility systems and jumped. The powered armor launched him 15 feet into the air and 50 feet forward. He flew over the heads of the advancing Kresh warriors, firing his rifle down into them as he passed. Each shot killed or severely wounded an enemy. He landed behind their front line, rolled, and came up firing again. The Kresh weren't prepared for this kind of combat. They were used to standing in formation, using superior numbers and firepower to overwhelm their enemies. They weren't used to enemies who could jump over them, who could survive their weapons, who could kill with single shots. Amy reached her position and deployed her heavy cannon. The weapon was the size of a small person, powered by her suit's fusion reactor. When she fired, the cannon shot didn't just kill 1 Kresh warrior. It killed 5. The explosive round detonating in the middle of their formation and sending bodies flying. Splash zone clear, Amy called out cheerfully, already targeting her next shot. Paul had found his spot on top of a partially collapsed building. From there he could see the entire battlefield. His rifle was designed for extreme precision at extreme range. Through his scope, he identified Kresh officers by their different armor markings. He fired once and a Kresh captain dropped dead 300 yards away. He fired again and another officer fell. Removing their command structure, Paul reported calmly. They're losing coordination. Nina was in the thick of it, moving through the Kresh warriors like a ghost. Her blade was made of monomolecular material, sharp enough to cut through almost anything. A Kresh warrior swung a massive club at her head. She ducked under it, drove her blade up through his chest, and was already moving to the next target before the first one hit the ground. 3 Kresh surrounded her, thinking they had her trapped. She activated her suit's shield burst, releasing a pulse of energy that knocked them all backward. While they were stunned, she eliminated them with quick, precise strikes, Close quarters clear, moving to the next cluster, Nina said, her voice completely calm despite the violence around her. Henry Cole was doing something different. While the others fought, he was hacking into the Kresh communications network. His suit had advanced electronic warfare capabilities, and he was using them to spread confusion among the enemy ranks. Got access to their command channel, Henry reported, feeding them false information now. Half their forces think they're being flanked from the north. Sure enough, a large group of Kresh warriors suddenly turned and started firing at nothing. Convinced by Henry's fake data that enemies were approaching from that direction, Lucy Ward was keeping everyone alive. She monitored the team's vital signs and armor integrity on her medical display. When she saw Jake's shields drop to 30%, she immediately called out, "Captain, shields critical. Fall back to my position for nanite repair." Jake fought his way to her location. Lucy's suit had specialized repair systems that could patch damaged armor and shields. While he stood there, she activated the repair sequence and tiny robots swarmed over his suit, fixing the damage in seconds. "Back in action," Jake said, his shields climbing back to 60%. "Thanks, Lucy." Victor Hayes was targeting the Kresh heavy weapons. The aliens had brought cannons designed to tear down the colony walls. Now Victor was using shaped charges to destroy those cannons. Each explosion removed another piece of artillery from the battlefield, weakening the Kresh's ability to break through the defenses. "Third cannon down," Victor reported. "They're getting mad about that." Indeed, a squad of Kresh warriors had spotted Victor and were charging his position. Victor calmly placed his last explosive charge, activated it, and then turned to face the charging enemies. His rifle barked and warriors fell, but the Kresh just kept coming. For everyone that died, 3 more took its place. They were used to winning through sheer numbers, and they had numbers on their side. Jake realized they couldn't hold this position forever. The Kresh would eventually overwhelm them through attrition. He needed to change the game. "New objective," Jake called out. "We're taking out their command post. If we remove their leadership, the rest will break." "Where is it?" Amy asked, already moving toward Jake's position. "Henry, can you track their command signals?" Jake asked. Henry worked his console for a few seconds. "Got it. Their commander is on the hill to the east, about 800 yards from your current position. He's in a reinforced bunker with at least 20 guards." "Then that's where we're going," Jake said. "Paul, you're on overwatch. Keep them off our backs. Everyone else with me. We're going to have a conversation with whoever's in charge of this mess." The team regrouped and began fighting their way toward the hill. The Kresh tried to stop them, but it was like trying to stop a force of nature. The 7 humans moved with perfect coordination, each covering the others, each kill bringing them closer to their target. Zrask watched his warriors die and felt the first real fear he had experienced in years. These weren't normal soldiers. These were something else, something better, something more dangerous than anything he had faced before. "Commander, they're heading toward our position," Zrask shouted. "We need to evacuate." "No," Zrask growled. "We have 2,000 warriors. They have 7. We will crush them with numbers." But even as he said it, he wasn't sure he believed it anymore. In the 5 minutes since these humans had arrived, they had killed over 200 of his warriors. His formations were breaking apart. His officers were dead, and now they were coming for him. He watched on his monitors as the 7 humans fought their way up the hill. Plasma fire washed over them, but they didn't stop. Explosions erupted around them, but they didn't fall. They just kept coming, methodical and unstoppable, like death itself wearing armor. "Seal the bunker," Zrask ordered. "Deploy all remaining guards." "Stop them." The bunker's blast doors began to close, heavy metal slabs that could withstand direct artillery hits. But before they could fully seal, one of the humans, the female with the heavy weapons, fired her cannon at the door mechanism. The explosive round destroyed the hydraulics and the doors ground to a halt. "Stuck half open." "Well," Amy said, looking at the damaged doors, "I guess we're going in the front way after all." Jake checked his ammunition. He was down to 40%. His shields were holding, but they wouldn't last much longer against sustained fire. The rest of his team was in similar condition. They were running on determination and training now. "Stack up," Jake ordered. "Standard breach procedure." "Amy?" The interior of the Kresh bunker was dark and filled with smoke from Amy's breaching charge. Jake's helmet automatically switched to thermal imaging, painting the world in shades of red and blue. He could see heat signatures ahead. At least 15 Kresh warriors waiting in defensive positions. Contact front, Jake said quietly. Nina, Amy, go left. Victor, Lucy, go right. Henry with me, center push. The team split and entered the bunker. The creche opened fire immediately, but they were firing blind through the smoke. The humans weren't. Each thermal signature became a target, and the RRC soldiers fired with deadly accuracy. Jake moved forward, his rifle barking short, controlled bursts. A creche warrior emerged from the smoke, swinging a massive blade. Jake sidestepped the attack and shot the warrior twice in the chest. The creature fell and Jake kept moving. Next to him, Henry was using his electronic warfare tools to disable the bunker's internal defenses. Automated turrets that should have been firing at the intruders suddenly went dark. Security doors that should have sealed shut stayed open. Their systems are primitive, Henry muttered. I'm locked in. They can't use any of their technology against us now. On the left side, Nina and Amy worked together like a well-oiled machine. Nina drew the creche warriors' attention with her speed and aggression, forcing them to focus on her while Amy lined up perfect shots with her heavy pistol. Each shot from Amy's sidearm was powerful enough to punch through creche armor and drop them permanently. Left corridor clear, Nina reported. On the right side, Lucy and Victor were being more methodical. Victor used grenades to flush the creche out of cover, and Lucy picked them off as they ran. It wasn't pretty, but it was effective. Right corridor clear, Victor called out. The team converged on the central chamber, where Zrask waited with his remaining guards. The creche commander stood behind a protective barrier, his personal shield generators creating a shimmering field around him. 6 elite guards surrounded him, their weapons trained on the doorway. Jake paused at the entrance, assessing the situation. Heavily defended position. Commander is shielded. 6 guards, heavy armor. I can break the shield, Amy said. Give me 30 seconds to set up a resonance shot. We don't have 30 seconds, Jake replied. Henry, can you overload his shield generators? Henry studied the energy patterns on his scanner. Maybe. Their shields operate on a different frequency than ours. If I can match it and send a feedback pulse, it might work. But I need a clear line of sight to his shield emitter. I'll get you one, Nina said. Before anyone could stop her, Nina charged into the room. The creche guards fired immediately, but Nina was already moving. She zigzagged across the chamber, moving too fast for them to track properly. Plasma bolts hit the walls and floor around her, but she danced between them like she knew where each shot would land before it was fired. She reached the first guard, and her blade flashed. The guard fell. She spun and kicked the second guard's weapon away, then eliminated him with a quick strike. The other guards were turning to face her, which meant their backs were to the doorway. Now, Henry, Jake shouted. Henry leaned around the corner and aimed his scanner at Zrask's shield emitter. He triggered the feedback pulse. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Zrask's shield flickered, sparked, and died completely. Jake was already moving. He crossed the room in 3 long strides and put his rifle directly against Zrask's head. Don't move. The remaining guards froze, unsure what to do. Their commander was held at gunpoint by a human soldier who had just crossed light years to get here. The situation was completely outside their experience. Zrask looked at Jake through his helmet visor. The creche commander was old, covered in scars from countless battles. His eyes were cold and calculating. You cannot win, human. Kill me and my warriors will tear your colony apart out of revenge. Maybe, Jake said calmly. Or maybe they'll realize that following a dead commander is pointless. Want to find out? Amy and Victor entered the room, their weapons trained on the guards. Lucy followed, scanning for additional threats. Henry stayed by the door, monitoring the creche communication networks. Captain, the creche forces outside are in disarray, Henry reported. They know we're in here with their commander. They're waiting for orders. Jake pressed his rifle harder against Zrask's head. Then give them orders. Tell your warriors to withdraw. Tell them to return to their ships and leave this planet. Zrask laughed, a harsh hissing sound. Why would I do that? You are 7 soldiers. 7. We are 2,000. Even if you kill me, you cannot defeat all of us. You're right, Jake said. We probably can't, but we can make you wish we weren't here. We can kill so many of your warriors that this victory becomes a defeat. We can make Terra Nova so expensive in creche blood that your people never attack another human colony again. He leaned closer to Zrask. And trust me, Commander, we will, because that's what humans do. We protect our own, and we never ever stop fighting. Zrask studied Jake's face through the helmet visor. He saw no fear there, no doubt. Just cold determination and the absolute certainty that this human meant every word he said. For the first time in his long military career, Srask believed he might lose this battle. "If I order a withdrawal," Srask said slowly, "what guarantee do I have that you won't shoot me the moment I do?" "You don't," Jake said flatly. "You have to trust that humans keep their word. Order the withdrawal and you live. Your warriors live. Everyone goes home. Keep fighting and I guarantee you won't leave this planet alive." Srask's claws flexed. He had options. He could call for his guards to attack, accept his own death but take these humans with him. He could refuse and hope his warriors could overwhelm these 7 soldiers through sheer numbers. He could try to fight his way out, but he was a military commander, not a fanatic. He understood strategy, and the strategy here was clear. These 7 humans had done what should have been impossible. They had broken through his lines, killed hundreds of his warriors, and captured him in his own command post. If more humans arrived, humans with this same level of skill and technology, the Kresh would lose badly. Better to retreat now and report this new threat to the Kresh High Command. "Let others decide how to deal with these dangerous humans." "Very well," Srask said. "I will order the withdrawal." He activated his communicator and his voice boomed across all Kresh channels. "All units, this is Commander Srask. Cease combat operations immediately. Fall back to the landing zone. Prepare for departure. This world is not worth the cost." On the battlefield outside, the Kresh warriors hesitated. For a moment it looked like they might not obey. Then slowly they began to pull back. The plasma fire stopped. The warriors lowered their weapons and started moving toward their landing ships. In the colony control room, Daniel Hayes watched his monitors in disbelief. "They're retreating." "Lisa, they're actually retreating." Lisa was crying openly now, tears of relief streaming down her face. "Sir, all Kresh forces are withdrawing. The siege is over. We're saved." Daniel grabbed his radio. "Attention all colony personnel. The Kresh are withdrawing. The battle is over. We're safe. We're going to survive this." Throughout the colony, people began to cheer. In the residential shelter, Karen held Emma tight and whispered, "Your father did it, baby. He saved us." But Karen knew it wasn't just Daniel. It was those 7 warriors who had fallen from the sky. Those 7 humans who had crossed the stars to answer a call for help. In the bunker, Jake kept his rifle on Srask until Henry confirmed that all Kresh forces were boarding their ships. Only then did he step back and lower his weapon. "You're free to go, Commander," Jake said. "But hear me clearly. Spread the word among your people. Earth protects its colonies. Attack human settlements again and we will respond. And next time we won't just send 7 soldiers. We'll send 7,000. Srask stood slowly, his guards moving to support him. "I will deliver your message, human. But this is not over. The Kresh Empire is vast. We do not forget." "Neither do we," Jake replied. Srask and his guards left the bunker. Minutes later, the Kresh ships began lifting off, carrying the remnants of the invasion force away from Terra Nova. The colonists watched from their walls as the alien vessels disappeared into the sky. Jake and his team emerged from the bunker to find a crowd of colonists waiting for them. Daniel Hayes was at the front, his face showing a mixture of relief, gratitude, and exhaustion. "Captain Morrison," Daniel said, extending his hand. "I'm Governor Daniel Hayes. You saved our lives." "All of us, thank you." Jake shook his hand. "We just answered the call, Governor. You and your people held the line until we got here." "That took real courage." Daniel laughed weakly. "We were terrified. We thought we were all going to die. But you didn't give up," Jake said. "That's what matters. You kept fighting, kept believing, kept hoping. That's the human spirit right there." Amy removed her helmet, revealing her young face. "Besides, your family. Earth takes care of family." Paul joined them, his sniper rifle slung over his shoulder. "Is everyone okay? Any serious casualties?" "Some injuries," Daniel said. "But thanks to you, no deaths. We got everyone to the shelters in time." A small crowd was forming around the soldiers now. People wanted to touch them, to thank them, to see with their own eyes the warriors who had saved them. Children stared in awe at the powered armor. Adults wept with relief. The alarm screamed through the colony compound, and Daniel Hayes knew they were out of time. He stood in the control room watching the screens that showed the outer walls. Smoke rose from 3 different sections where the alien weapons had burned through the metal barriers. The Kresh were coming, and there was nothing left to stop them. Daniel was 52 years old. He had been a teacher back on Earth before he signed up to be governor of Terra Nova. That felt like a lifetime ago now. He had brought his wife and daughter here, along with 700 other people who wanted a fresh start among the stars. They had built homes, planted crops, and dreamed of a peaceful future. Now those dreams were burning. How long do we have? Daniel asked, though he already knew the answer would be bad. Lisa Morgan looked up from her console. She was young, barely 25, and had been the colony's communication officer for only 8 months. Her hands shook as she checked the readings. The eastern wall will fall in less than an hour, sir. Maybe 40 minutes. Once they break through there, they'll have a straight path to the residential area. Daniel closed his eyes. His wife Karen was in the residential area right now, helping to move the children into the reinforced shelter. His daughter Emma, who was only 10 years old, was with her. He had promised them they would be safe here. He had promised them Earth would protect them, but Earth was 23 light years away. Even if they had sent help the moment they received the first distress call, it would take months to arrive. The Kresh had known that when they attacked. They had chosen Terra Nova specifically because it was isolated, far from any military bases or trade routes. Easy prey. Sir, they're firing again, Lisa said. The building shook as another explosion hit somewhere close. Dust fell from the ceiling. The lights flickered but stayed on. Daniel gripped the edge of the console to keep his balance. Outside, the Kresh warriors advanced. They were reptilian creatures twice the height of a human, with scales that could deflect most small arms fire. Their weapons fired superheated plasma that melted through steel like it was paper. They had come in 30 ships 3 days ago, landing just beyond scanner range and then marching toward the colony with military precision. The colonists had tried to fight back. They had mining equipment that could be used as weapons. Some people had hunting rifles. A few brave souls had even tried to organize a militia, but none of it mattered. The Kresh were warriors, bred and trained for conquest. The humans of Terra Nova were farmers, teachers, engineers, and families. They never stood a chance. Send another message to Earth, Daniel said quietly. Tell them we held out as long as we could. Tell them we were brave. Lisa's fingers moved across her keyboard. Sir, the last message won't reach Earth for another 3 weeks. Even if they respond immediately, help won't arrive for months. We'll be... She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to, I know, Daniel said. But send it anyway. Someone needs to know what happened here. Someone needs to know we didn't just give up. Lisa nodded and began typing. Her message was simple and direct. It contained the colony's final status report, the number of survivors still alive, and the coordinates of Terra Nova. At the end, she added a personal note. We fought. We're still fighting. Please remember us. She hit send and the message launched into space, traveling at the speed of light toward a home that felt impossibly far away. Across the colony, people prepared for the end. In the residential shelter, Karen Hayes held her daughter close. Emma was crying quietly, her face pressed against her mother's shoulder. Around them, other families huddled together. Some prayed. Some sang soft songs to calm the frightened children. Some just sat in silence, holding hands and waiting. Is Daddy going to be okay? Emma asked, her voice small and scared. Karen stroked her daughter's hair. She wanted to lie, to tell Emma that everything would be fine, that help was coming, that they would all survive this. But she had never lied to her daughter before, and she wouldn't start now. Your father is very brave, Karen said carefully. He's doing everything he can to protect us. And no matter what happens, he loves you very much. Emma started crying harder. She was smart enough to understand what her mother wasn't saying. In the control room, Daniel watched the eastern wall on his monitors. The Kresh had brought up heavy weapons now, massive cannons that fired continuously at the weakest section of the barrier. Each impact sent shock waves through the ground. The metal was glowing red-hot, starting to bend inward under the relentless assault. 30 minutes, Lisa said. Maybe less. Daniel picked up his radio. He could call Karen right now. He could say goodbye to his wife and daughter. But what would he say? How do you compress a lifetime of love into a few desperate minutes? All personnel, this is Governor Hayes, he said instead, broadcasting to the entire colony. I know you're scared. I'm scared too, but I want you to know something. Earth knows we're here. Earth knows we're in trouble, and even though help won't arrive in time, even though we're facing impossible odds, we are still human. We are still brave, and we will face this together as a community, as a family. His voice cracked slightly on the last word, but he pushed through. To everyone in the shelters, stay strong. To everyone still fighting, thank you. You've made Earth proud. You've made me proud. And whatever happens in the next hour, remember that we never gave up. We held the line until the very end. He released the radio button and sat down heavily in his chair. Lisa was crying silently at her console, but her hands never stopped working, monitoring the systems, tracking the enemy positions, doing her job until the bitter end. The eastern wall began to collapse. The metal screamed as it tore apart, and suddenly there was a gap big enough for the Kresh warriors to pour through. Daniel could see them on the monitors. Hundreds of reptilian soldiers charging toward the residential area, their weapons raised, their eyes gleaming with predatory hunger. "This is it," Lisa whispered. But then something strange appeared on her scanner. She frowned, wiping tears from her eyes, and looked closer. "Sir, I'm picking up something in orbit. 7 objects moving fast. Really fast." Daniel stood up and moved to her station. "What kind of objects? Kresh reinforcements?" "No, sir. The signature is wrong. They're small, too small to be ships, and they're transmitting human identification codes. Military codes." Daniel's heart began to pound. "How many?" 7, sir. They've entered atmosphere. They're coming in hot, trajectory aimed directly at the Kresh position. On the main screen, Daniel could see them now. 7 streaks of fire cutting across the sky like falling stars. The Kresh had stopped their advance, looking up in confusion at the burning objects screaming toward them. The objects hit the ground between the Kresh army and the colony walls. The impact was tremendous, sending up clouds of dust and debris. For a long moment, everything was silent. The Kresh stood frozen. The colonists held their breath. Then the dust began to clear, and Daniel saw them. 7 figures standing in the craters, backlit by the fires of their landing. They were human, but they wore armor unlike anything Daniel had ever seen. Powered combat suits with advanced weapon systems. Elite soldiers, warriors from Earth, had fallen from the sky, and they had come to fight. The sun was rising over Terra Nova, painting the smoke-filled sky in shades of orange and red. Jake Morrison stood on what remained of the colony's eastern wall, looking out at the battlefield where they had fought just hours ago. Bodies of Kresh warriors still littered the ground. Craters from the impact of their drop pods scarred the earth. Scorch marks from plasma fire covered every surface, but the colony was still standing. The people were alive. That was what mattered. Behind him, his team was preparing to depart. Lucy was running final diagnostics on everyone's armor, making sure the repair systems had properly fixed the damage from combat. Victor was restocking their ammunition from supplies the USS Defender had dropped. Henry was backing up all the data he had collected about Kresh technology and tactics, information that might save lives in future battles. Amy sat on a piece of rubble, eating a protein bar and watching the sunrise. Paul was nearby, carefully cleaning his rifle. Nina was surrounded by colony children, answering their endless questions about what it was like to be a soldier. "Are you really leaving?" asked a small boy named Charlie. "What if the monsters come back?" Nina ruffled his hair gently. "We have to go, Charlie, but the Kresh won't come back here. We made sure they understood this colony is protected."
"And your governor is setting up proper defenses now."
"You'll be safe." "I want to be like you when I grow up," Charlie said seriously. "I want to protect people," Nina smiled. "Then study hard, stay brave, and remember that protecting people isn't just about fighting. It's about standing up when others need help. You can do that no matter what job you have." Daniel Hayes approached Jake on the wall. The governor looked like he had aged 10 years in the past few days. Dark circles under his eyes spoke of sleepless nights, and his hands still shook slightly from the stress and fear he had endured. "Captain," Daniel said quietly, "I heard about New Cardiff. You're really leaving already?" "We have to," Jake said. "That's what we do. We go where we're needed." Daniel was silent for a moment, looking out at the battlefield. "I keep thinking about how close we came. Another hour, maybe 2, and the Kresh would have broken through to the residential shelters. My wife and daughter were in there. Everyone's families." He turned to face Jake. "You saved 700 lives today. 700 people who would have died if you hadn't come. How do we even begin to thank you for that?" "You don't need to thank us," Jake said. "You just need to live. Build your colony. Raise your families. Make Terra Nova everything you dreamed it would be. That's the best thanks we could ask for." "But you're going to do this again," Daniel said. You're going to throw yourself into another impossible situation to save people you've never met. That's the job, Jake replied simply. Doesn't it scare you? Knowing you might not survive? Jake considered the question. Of course it scares me. I'd be crazy if it didn't, but you know what scares me more? The idea that someone might call for help and no one would answer, that families might die because we chose to play it safe and stay home. He looked at Daniel directly. Fear is just an emotion, Governor. It doesn't control us unless we let it, and every member of my team made the choice long ago that protecting others was more important than protecting ourselves. Karen Hayes arrived then, holding her daughter Emma's hand. Emma had wanted to see the soldiers before they left, to say thank you to the people who had saved her life. Captain Morrison, Emma said shyly. She was clutching a drawing she had made, showing stick figures in armor fighting alien monsters. Jake knelt down to her level. Hi there. What's your name? Emma, I made this for you. It's you and your team fighting the bad aliens. Jake took the drawing carefully. This is amazing, Emma, thank you. I'll keep this with me. My dad said you came from really far away to help us, Emma said. Is Earth really pretty? Earth is beautiful, Jake said. It's got blue oceans and green forests and mountains that touch the sky. But you know what? I bet Terra Nova will be just as pretty once you finish building it, maybe even prettier. Will you come back and visit someday? Emma asked hopefully. I'd like that, Jake said honestly. When you're all settled and the colony is thriving, I'd love to come back and see what you've built. Emma smiled and then, impulsively hugged Jake. He wrapped his arms around the small child, feeling her heartbeat against his armor. This was why he did this job, this moment right here. Knowing that this little girl would grow up, would have a future, would build a life on this distant world because 7 soldiers had decided to answer a call for help. Karen pulled Emma back gently. Thank you, Captain. Thank you for giving us back our future. More colonists were gathering now, wanting to say goodbye. They brought food, small gifts, anything they could offer to the soldiers who had saved them. Amy was collecting handwritten thank you notes from children. Paul was accepting a hand-carved wooden medallion from one of the colony's craftsmen. Victor was being hugged by an elderly woman who reminded him of his grandmother. Henry was helping the colony's technical staff improve their security systems. Here, if you configure your scanners this way, you'll get earlier warning if anyone approaches. And see this setting? That's going to help you filter out false alarms from local wildlife. Mr. Cole, you've been so helpful, Lisa Morgan said. She was the communication officer who had sent the original distress call. I don't know what we would have done without all of you. You would have survived, Henry said confidently. Maybe not the same way, but you would have found a way. Humans always do. Nina finished talking with the children and joined Jake on the wall. She watched the sunrise in silence for a moment before speaking. This never gets easier, does it? Leaving people behind, no, Jake agreed. But we're not really leaving them behind. We're giving them a chance to build something good here. That's worth the pain of saying goodbye. Captain, this is the USS Defender. The ship's communication officer called over their channel. We're ready to retrieve you whenever you give the word. Also, Admiral Peterson wants to brief you on the new Cardiff situation before you drop. Understood. Tell the Admiral we'll be ready in 10 minutes. Jake activated his team channel. RRC, prepare for extraction. Wrap up your goodbyes. We leave in 10. His team acknowledged and began moving toward the designated pickup zone. The colonists followed, not wanting to let them go but understanding they had to. The extraction ship descended from orbit, a sleek military transport that landed in the colony's central square. The rear ramp lowered and a squad of regular Marines emerged. These were reinforcements, soldiers who would stay behind to help Terra Nova establish proper defenses and train the colonists in basic military tactics. The Marine sergeant, a tough-looking woman named Kate Murphy, saluted Jake. Captain Morrison, sir. We're here to take over colony defense while you move on to New Cardiff. Good to see you, Sergeant. Governor Hayes will brief you on the colony's needs. They're good people, treat them well. Always do, sir. Jake gathered his team at the base of the ramp. 7 soldiers who had dropped into hell and fought their way back out. 7 people who were already exhausted but would keep going because others needed them. Everyone good to go? Jake asked. Ready, Captain. They answered in unison. Jake turned back to the crowd of colonists one last time. Daniel Hayes stood at the front, his arm around his wife, his daughter holding both their hands. Behind them, 700 people who had been given a second chance at life. People of Terra Nova, Jake called out, his voice carrying across the square. A few hours ago you were under siege. You were scared, outnumbered, and facing an enemy that wanted to destroy everything you had built. But you didn't give up. You fought with everything you had. You protected each other. You held the line. He paused, looking at the faces in the crowd. My team and I are honored to have fought beside you. You showed us what humanity is capable of when pushed to the edge. You showed courage, determination, and an unwillingness to surrender even when surrender seemed like the only option. Now you have a choice. You can let what happened here break you, or you can let it make you stronger. You can rebuild. You can grow. You can turn Terra Nova into the home you always dreamed it would be. And when you do, remember that Earth stands with you. Remember that you are not alone out here among the stars. Because here's the promise that humanity makes to every single colonist, every single person who leaves Earth to build a new life out here. If you need us, we will come. It doesn't matter how far away you are. It doesn't matter how impossible the rescue seems. If you call for help, someone will answer. You thought no one would come, but we did. And that's not because you're special or because Terra Nova is strategically important. It's because you're human. You're family, and family doesn't abandon family. His voice grew stronger, more passionate. The galaxy is a big place. It's dangerous. It's full of species that might see humanity as weak because we build colonies instead of empires, because we value individual lives over military conquest. But they're wrong. They don't understand that our compassion is not weakness. Our willingness to help others is not a flaw. It's our greatest strength. Because when humans stand together, when we refuse to let each other face danger alone, we are unstoppable. The Kresh learned that today. Other species will learn it tomorrow. Jake Morrison had been awake for 36 hours straight, but he didn't feel tired. The stimulants in his combat suit kept him sharp, and the adrenaline did the rest. He stood in the deployment bay of the carrier ship, the USS Defender, checking his weapons one last time before the drop. Around him, his team prepared in silence. They had done this so many times before that words weren't necessary. Each soldier knew their role, knew their equipment, and knew the risks. They were the Rapid Response Corps, humanity's answer to emergencies in deep space. When colonies got in trouble and time was critical, the RRC was who Earth sent. But this mission was different. This time they were already too late. The distress call from Terra Nova had reached Earth Command 6 days ago. By the time they decoded it and realized how desperate the situation was, the Kresh had already been attacking the colony for 48 hours. A standard military response would take weeks to organize and months to arrive. The colonists didn't have weeks. They barely had days. So Earth Command had activated the RRC and their experimental slipstream pods. The technology was new, barely tested, and pushed the limits of what human engineering could achieve. The pods could cross light years in days instead of months by punching through normal space into a faster dimension. The trip was dangerous, uncomfortable, and had a 5% failure rate. Jake and his team had volunteered anyway. 5 minutes to drop point, announced the ship's computer, its voice calm and mechanical. Jake looked at his team. Lieutenant Amy Chen was smallest of the group, but she carried the heaviest weapons. She specialized in explosives and heavy ordnance, and she had a talent for causing maximum destruction with surgical precision. Right now she was humming something under her breath, a nervous habit she had never managed to break. Sergeant Paul Bennett was checking his sniper rifle for what must have been the 10th time. He was methodical and careful, the kind of soldier who never took unnecessary risks. His job was to provide overwatch and eliminate high-value targets from distance. He was the best shot Jake had ever seen. Corporal Nina Ross sat perfectly still with her eyes closed. She looked like she was sleeping, but Jake knew better. Nina was running through combat scenarios in her head, visualizing every possible outcome, preparing her mind and body for the violence to come. She was their close combat specialist, deadly with both blade and gun. The other 3 members of the team were equally skilled. Private Henry Cole handled communications and electronic warfare. Private Lucy Ward was their medic, trained to keep people alive under the worst possible conditions. And Private Victor Hayes, no relation to the colony's governor, was their engineer and demolitions backup. 7 soldiers against 2,000 Kresh warriors. The numbers were insane. But the mission wasn't to win a war. The mission was to break the siege, give the colonists a fighting chance. and extract as many people as possible before the crash could regroup. "Listen up," Jake said, his voice cutting through the quiet of the bay. "I'm not going to lie to you. This is a bad one. Intel says 700 civilians trapped in a colony compound, surrounded by crash forces. The walls are falling and they've got maybe an hour before the enemy breaks through to the residential areas." He paused, looking each team member in the eye. "We're dropping directly into the combat zone. The crash won't be expecting us, which gives us maybe 30 seconds of surprise before they start shooting. We use that time to establish a defensive perimeter and draw their attention away from the civilians. Our primary objective is to disrupt their command structure and create enough chaos that they pull back." "And if they don't pull back?" Amy asked, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. "Then we make them regret ever coming to Terra Nova," Jake said flatly. "These are our people down there. Earth's people. Families who left home to build something new, and now they're being slaughtered because they were too far away for anyone to help them in time. Well, we're here now, and we're going to show these reptilian bastards what happens when you mess with human colonists." "Ura," the team responded, their voices unified and strong. 2 minutes, the computer announced. Jake sealed his helmet and felt the suit's systems come fully online. Information flooded his heads-up display. Environmental readings, weapon status, team locations, mission parameters. The suit was a marvel of technology, powered by a microfusion reactor and capable of amplifying his strength to superhuman levels. The armor could withstand small arms fire and even deflect some energy weapons. The rifle he carried fired hypersonic rounds that could punch through crush scales. But even with all that technology, they were still just 7 humans. 7 people who had chosen to throw themselves into hell because someone needed help. The slipstream pods opened like metal flowers, each one designed for a single soldier. Jake climbed into his pod and felt the restraints lock into place. The interior was cramped and dark. For the next few minutes, he would be sealed inside this metal coffin, falling through dimensions that human minds weren't meant to comprehend, traveling faster than light toward a battlefield 23 light-years from Earth. 1 minute. All systems green. Pods armed and ready. Jake's heart rate increased. He had done this dozens of times, but it never got easier. The moment before the drop was always the worst, that last quiet second before everything went to hell. 30 seconds. Godspeed, warriors. The bay doors opened, revealing the infinite darkness of space. Terra Nova was invisible from this distance, just another point of light among billions. But somewhere down there, people were dying. Children were crying. Families were saying goodbye to each other. Not if Jake could help it. 10 seconds. He took a deep breath and closed his eyes, thinking about why he had joined the military in the first place. His grandfather had been a Marine, had fought in wars back on Earth before humanity reached the stars. The old man had told him stories about what it meant to be a soldier, about the responsibility to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. 5 seconds. This was what those stories had been about. This moment right here, the choice to step forward when everyone else stepped back. The decision to fight when fighting seemed hopeless. Launch. The pod shot forward and Jake felt his stomach lurch as the slipstream drive activated. Reality twisted around him. Colors that shouldn't exist flashed past the pod's exterior. Time seemed to stretch and compress simultaneously. The human brain wasn't designed to process what happened during slipstream travel, so Jake's mind simply edited it out, creating gaps in his perception. One moment he was leaving the USS Defender in deep space. The next moment he was screaming through Terra Nova's atmosphere at speeds that turned the pod into a meteor. Through his external cameras, Jake could see the colony below. Smoke rose from burning buildings. The walls were breached in multiple places, and swarming around the compound like angry insects were the Kresh, their reptilian forms easy to identify even from this height. RRC. Sound off, Jake ordered over the team channel. Chen, pod integrity good, landing in 15 seconds. Bennett, systems green, I have visual on the target zone. Ross, locked and ready. One by one his team confirmed their status. 7 pods, 7 warriors, all on target and ready to fight. The ground rushed up to meet them. Jake braced for impact, trusting his suit and the pod's systems to absorb the shock. The pod hit the surface like a hammer blow, cratering into the dirt between the Kresh lines and the colony walls. The impact should have killed him, would have killed him without the pod's inertial dampeners and his suit's protection. Instead, he just felt like someone had punched him in the chest. The pod's front panel blew off and Jake stepped out into chaos. Dust filled the air from the 7 impact craters. The Kresh warriors had stopped their advance, clearly confused by the meteors that had just fallen from the sky. Good. Confusion was a weapon, and Jake intended to use it. He raised his rifle and activated his suit's external speakers. His voice boomed across the battlefield, amplified to inhuman volumes. Attention, Kresh forces. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth Rapid Response Corps. You are in violation of the Outer Colonies Protection Act. You have 1 chance to withdraw peacefully. If you continue this attack, we will respond with lethal force. For a moment, there was only silence. Then one of the Kresh warriors raised his plasma rifle and fired at Jake. The shot hit his shields and dissipated harmlessly. Jake smiled inside his helmet. Wrong answer. He opened fire and the battle began.